In our next yesteryear yiff yarn, the king of the land seeks the services of the king of the root. Lock up your daughter, lock up your wife, clench up your back door, and beg for your life. The Gynomancer is back in town.
With the sun blazing overhead, the horseman, exhausted and battered from days of riding, urged his steed on. The capital city, Ovenia, was within sight. "Halt! State your business, rider!" cried the guard, training his crossbow on the haggard horseman. The rider, slowing his mount to a stop and, reaching into his saddlebag, brought forth a small chest. I must speak to the king!" Holding the chest high for the guards to see, both men and horse collapsed to the ground. With caution, a phalanx of watchmen approached the fallen rider, encircling him. Lying beside his dead horse, the man was unconscious, but breathing. "Gods! What caused these wounds?" Kneeling down beside the man, the guard examined his body. From neck to groin and down both arms, the man appeared to have been viciously clawed and bitten, many of the wounds still bleeding. "Bring me that damn chest he was carrying," ordered the captain of the guard. With much effort, the guard managed to pry the chest from the man's rigid grip and tossed it to the captain. Throwing open the lid, the captain's hard face quickly turned pale white. "Get a cleric for this man, and put the son of a whore in chains. He must be brought before the king at once." The captain once more looked down at the grim contents of the chest, packed neatly on a cushion of blood-soaked women's undergarments. The severed head of Baron Brapton, Lord of the Bleached Lands. The king stared down at the head of his dearest friend, the eyes soulless, tongue drooping through shattered teeth and broken jaw. "What is the meaning of this?" said the king through clenched teeth. The man, Sigmund by name, and bound in heavy chains and lying prostrate, lifted his head weakly. "Your Majesty, the Bleached Lands, my home, all has been destroyed." Sigmund began to weep hysterically. "Silence!" commanded the king. "I will hear what has befallen my province. Who did this?" he snarled, throwing the head of the baron at Sigmund. He quickly crawled back and averted his eyes away from the lifeless gaze. "My lord, nearly a fortnight ago a man arrived in Bleach Town. At first he was known only in the Dark District, frequenting the bars and whorehouses. Though never spending coin, he gathered around him a large following of courtesans and barmaids, seeming to entice them with only strange words. These women folk were seen to comply with his every wish and command. Many were seen leaving his bedchambers at the inn many a night. Later was seen doing the same to the wives and daughters of the townfolk. The men of the town grew enraged until a mob gathered, myself amongst them, to put an end to it. We found the man with a large gathering. We ordered our women away, swinging torches at those who would not disperse, and advanced on the scoundrel. Grundle Fistdeep, the town blacksmith, grabbed the man by the arm and began dragging him toward the frenzied mob. Kicking and cursing, the man shouted out strange words to the frightened women. It was then, sire, that the women, our own wives and daughters..." Sigmund again began to sob. A guard, prodding him with a lance, urged him to continue. "They went insane, sire, as if possessed by demons. All at once they charged us. Surprised and afraid to bring them harm, we were helpless. Using any edge or club within reach, they attacked us, stabbing and bludgeoning their own husbands and brothers. Those without weapons clawed out eyes and chewed out throats. I watched in horror as the blacksmith's own elderly wife bashed in her husband's skull with his own hammer, continuing long after no head remained. Sigmund bowed his head in reflection. In the tumult, I hid. I played dead amongst the bodies of my neighbors. I watched as the women set fire to the market, to the temple, to their own homes. All the while that man, that demon, stood there laughing, bellowing out another of his incantations. 4 of the larger women came to his beckoning, crawling on their hands and knees, naked. Seating himself upon their backs, he gave a call to the rest of the women. They made their way towards the castle. A few days later, they found me searching for food. I was set upon, scratched, beaten, and dragged to the castle by the wenches. Finally, I was thrown before the devil himself. He gave me that accursed chest and sent me to you, my lord. Said I was to live to tell what befell the Bleached Lands. After dismissing Sigmund and his royal guard, the king turned to his advisor.
"What do you make of all this?"
asked the king.
"My lord, our forces are spread too thin to put down a rebellion. Perhaps the Bleached Lands are better left alone. The half-breeds of those lands are always on the verge of insurrection. And give up all that Baron Brapton had worked for. He nearly bleached all those lands himself with his own loins. Never. What of this sorcerer? Ever hear anything like this?" "This is beyond my expertise, my lord. There is one in the city that may." "Absolutely not. I don't trust that whoring snake, and the bastard asks far too much for his services. We may have no choice, my lord. We burned all those with arcane knowledge in the kingdom, save for him."
The king grimaced at the memory of sparing that scum from the pyre.
"Fine, bring him to me."
The advisor found the mage in one of his many brothels spread throughout the city, lounging in nothing but a fur hat made from the pelt of a werewoman and pantaloons made of the coins of the realm. The mage was busying himself with the breasts of one of his many raced concubines.
"Sorry to have interrupted. Your king has need of you." "My king, you say? The very one who threatened me with the pyre should I ever show my face in public again?" "He's willing to hear your offer. This is of the utmost importance to our liege." "Your daughter. I wish her hand in marriage."
A smile crept across the mage's face.
"You sniveling fucking maggot! I'll have you burned for!"
The king's advisor whispered into the king's ear.
"Your Majesty, he's the only option we have. You have other daughters." "Fine. Just bring order to the Bleached Lands. You fail me, and your life is forfeit." "Of course, my lord. I need but only a horse."
With the tip of his hat, he made way for Bleach Town. It was a 3-day journey south from Ovenia. The carnage spread for miles from the city center of Bleach Town. Burnt farmhouses and the occasional chapel lined the roads. Bodies lying in mud in various forms of mutilation. At the last crossroads before the city proper, the mage happened upon a flayed man, crucified to a signpost with a sign nailed to his chest, written in blood, "Turn back." Cresting the final hill of his journey, the mage was greeted by an unsettling scene. Scores of women, young and old, nubile and mature, standing at rigid attention before the city gates, brandishing every imaginable instrument of pain. Axes and clubs, sword and dagger, hammer and sickle. And there, taking up the rear guard of his army, was the stranger. Guiding his horse forward, the mage called out to his foe.
In the name of the king, lay down your weapons and surrender.
The stranger, laughing, replied,
Ladies, bring me his head.
With a blood-curdling scream, the harpies charged across the field. Falling into a deep trance, the mage waited for the horde to draw closer. Forming powerful glyphs in his mind, he released a burst of psionic negs at the oncoming wave of cunts. The horde slowed. Many began reversing their charge back toward the stranger. Seeing the spell's effects on his warriors, the stranger quickly cast a spell of sensitivity. Immediately confused by the mixed signals they were receiving from the two spellcasters, the horde stopped in its tracks. Some broke down crying. Others began to fornicate. Most began to butcher one another. The horde was in chaos. As the stranger frantically tried regaining control of his forces that were tearing each other apart, he noticed something on the outskirts of the battle. A woman approached. As she drew closer, he thought she may be the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. All thoughts of battle left his mind. He fell face first into the gore left by his rampaging hordes. Lifting his head from the intestines, blood, and mud, the stranger looked upon the avatar of his affection. Truly, the goddess has deemed him worthy. Instead, she held a broadsword, poised, ready to strike off the stranger's head. Still holding the sword in striking range, the mage peeled off the articles of clothing he picked up off the battlefield. The stranger, looking around at the bodies of his fallen army and at the man holding the sword, began to laugh.
Well played, brother. You've learned much since last we've met.
Not bad yourself, though controlling the minds of half-breeds hardly seems a challenge.
Both laughing as the mage gave a hand to the stranger, pulling him up from the ground.
Come, brother. I have a new wife to claim for putting you down. Maybe I'll be willing to share? Though, I'd recommend you take on a new appearance. Our beloved king has a thing for burning the likes of us.
How romantic! It always warms the heart to see a nice young man settle down.